She was right there, smiling at me, and then she vanished. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe. It started innocently enough, a family Christmas photo shoot. Julia, my 6-year-old daughter, was front and center. Yellow dress dotted with tiny daisies, hair tied neatly, eyes sparkling. She loved photos, loved being seen. So when the prince came back, my heart sank. She wasn't there. Not cropped behind anyone, not blurred or hidden, completely gone. Every single photo. Julia clutched a card, tiny hands trembling. "Where am I?" she asked, voice barely audible. I swallowed the knot in my throat. She had been there, laughing, fidgeting, holding her little hand tightly around her cousin Jessie's for courage. Now, erased. Gone. I flipped through the stack faster, hoping it was a mistake. Maybe one slipped through. But no. Each glossy card was identical. Julia's absence was deliberate. The floorboards where her shoes had been were duplicated. Shadows warped unnaturally. Someone paid to remove her. Someone put effort into pretending she never existed. Her little voice broke the silence. "Maybe I'm hiding. Maybe I'm too small. Maybe I'm behind someone." I pulled her into my arms. 6 years old. 6 years old, and she already understood the sting of being erased. I didn't yell, I didn't make a scene, but inside, fury burned. This would be the last time anyone tried to erase my daughter. The next morning, my mom opened her own gift, oblivious to the tension. She beamed, holding a perfect stack of the same cards. "Look at these," she said, as if curating a museum exhibit. I clenched my jaw. Becky, my sister, always the golden child, stood behind her kids, polished, poised, smiling like they'd stepped off a magazine cover. Julia darted forward instinctively. She loved being part of the family. She grabbed a card, tilting her head, squinting. Her smile faltered. Every face in the photo was there, everyone, except her. My mom, my dad, Becky, Jason, cousins, even the grandparents. Perfect. But Julia was gone. "Why am I not in any?" The words pierced me. I held her closer. "They said, it's better this way," my mom said smoothly. "Your dress didn't fit, you stood out. It's nothing personal." I forced a smile, but the cold knot in my chest tightened. Nothing personal? This was erasure, and it was cruel. Silent cruelty. The kind that doesn't need shouting. It speaks through omissions, decisions, and polished cards. I looked at Julia. Her little hands trembled, her eyes filled with confusion and hurt. I had to be her anchor. I promised myself I would make this right. Life had always been like this. My childhood, Becky's world. The polished, visible, perfect child. Me, invisible labor. When grandma's knees hurt, I carried her up the stairs. Becky, piano lessons, soccer practice, endless extracurriculars, every investment my parents made. I swept floors, cooked meals, made the house perfect for everyone else. Even as an adult, it didn't stop. I fell in love, thought maybe they'd see me, finally treat me like more than a housemaid with a pulse. I asked for help with rent, softly. My parents said, "Stay here. There's space." Translation, stay invisible, stay useful. I moved out anyway. A shoebox apartment, secondhand furniture, barely enough to breathe. Freedom didn't need curtains that matched. Julia arrived soon after, and the disappearing act continued. While Becky's kids had rooms of their own, Julia and I were relegated to the attic. Sloped ceiling, drafty in winter, stifling in summer, barely space for 2 beds. She didn't notice at first, but by 6, she did. "Why do I share with you? Why don't I have my own?" I lied. "It's temporary." But it wasn't temporary. My parents' pattern of favoritism wasn't just a childhood story, it was our present, threatening to shadow Julia's life the same way it had shadowed mine. And Christmas was the moment it hit her hardest. The cards were glossy lies. Every smiling cousin, every proud parent, except her. She picked them up, flipping frantically. I could feel the panic rising. She didn't deserve this. She never did. I couldn't sleep that night. Julia finally dozed off, clutching her stuffed bunny like it was the only thing anchoring her to this reality. I stared at the attic ceiling, water stains forming shapes that seemed to whisper back at me. I made a plan. I reached out to a friend who worked at a bar, asking for night shifts. Days at work, nights working, anything to save enough to get Julia out of that house. The attic could hold us, but it couldn't protect her from their erasure. The next morning, a strange sight greeted me in the living room. A small, neatly wrapped box among the leftover decorations. Mom spotted it first. "Oh, how sweet, a gift from Grandma," she said, smiling smugly. She opened it. Her smile vanished. Inside were stacks of official papers, legal documents, sealed and witnessed, eviction notices, and a will. Grandma had changed it. Everything left to me and Julia. Nothing for Mom or Becky. Silence. I caught my parents' expressions: disbelief, panic, fury. Julia gripped my hand, eyes wide. I couldn't move. Mom screamed, high-pitched, wild. Dad tried reasoning. Grandma didn't flinch. "It's not a joke. You erased my grandchild. Megan and Julia will have this house. You'll get nothing." I met Julia's eyes. For the first time, she saw hope, not confusion. The tide had turned. The cards, the favoritism, the erasure, it had failed. But the storm wasn't over. A week later, a knock at the door. Sharp, official. Julia instinctively held my hand. Police officers and a protective services worker stood at the threshold. Elder abuse allegations. Mom's sweet, syrupy greeting couldn't hide her panic. They separated us. Questions flew. Were meals prepared for Grandma? Was I alone when documents were signed? Every answer carefully measured. Every glance at me felt like accusation, guilt etched across my forehead. Through it all, I caught fragments of Grandma's voice, calm, steady, ironclad. She wasn't being coerced. She had made the choice herself, and the message was clear: this family would no longer erase us. When the officers left, the front door clicked shut. Silence returned, but it wasn't the old silence. It was jagged, dangerous, and full of unspoken threat. Mom and Dad exchanged glances, unsure who to hate more. Julia pressed close, seeking comfort. "Are we okay now?" she whispered. I kissed her hair. "Not yet," I said. The storm was building, but this time, we were ready. The next few days were tense. Threats, whispers, intimidation. "You'll regret this. We'll take Julia from you." I didn't flinch. Julia heard. Her grip on her stuffed bunny tightened. That was the last straw. Grandma acted immediately, calling her lawyer. By noon, officers oversaw my parents packing their belongings. No screaming, no theatrics, just the cold reality that they were leaving. Julia and I had a home at last. Safe, small, yes, but ours. For the first time in years, I saw her truly happy. Breakfast with grandma, drawings on the walls, laughter unshadowed by favoritism or erasure. We weren't rich, we weren't glamorous, but we were free. And finally, family meant safety, love, and presence, not perfection or erasure. Do you think grandma did the right thing, or was she too harsh? Think about that for a moment. Because in the next part, we'll dive into exactly how my parents lost everything and how Julia finally claimed the childhood they tried to steal from her. The cards had been glossy lies, but now reality had caught up with them. The house felt different after that morning. Quiet, yes, but not peaceful. Every corner seemed sharper, every shadow heavier. My parents had left under police supervision, their faces pale, eyes darting like trapped animals. Julia peeked from behind me, clutching her stuffed bunny, unsure if this was freedom or a different kind of danger. I held her hand tighter. "We're safe now," I whispered, though I knew better than to promise certainty. Grandma sat in the kitchen, a cup of tea in hand, calm as ever. "They'll try to make this difficult," she said, almost casually. "But this house belongs to those who live here, not those who wish to erase." I looked at Julia. She had finally stopped asking questions, her wide eyes now filled with cautious hope. It was a fragile thing, hope, but we clutched it anyway. Word spreads fast in families, especially when scandal, betrayal, and karma are involved. By the end of the week, whispers started. Becky asking for favors, friends of my parents offering awkward sympathies, neighbors glancing curiously. They had invested so much in appearances. The perfect furniture, the shiny house, the endless extracurriculars for Becky's kids. And now, after a single decision by Grandma, they were left with nothing. I remember the first call. My cousin whispered conspiratorially, almost in fear, "Becky, she's asking for help. Can you believe it?" I laughed quietly, the irony too sharp not to. The girl who had received handouts, renovations, and family approval was suddenly scraping for even the smallest favor. But the real shift wasn't just financial, it was psychological. For the first time, my parents' carefully curated superiority crumbled. No amount of shiny cards, new furniture, or golden child favoritism could protect them now. They were powerless. And we, Julia and I, were finally allowed to exist fully in the light. I painted her room soft yellow, a room just for her. Every morning, I watched her place her drawings on the wall, proud of her space, proud of her presence. Grandma smiled at her across the table at breakfast, like Julia was the only child in the world who mattered. It was ordinary happiness, and it felt revolutionary. But life has a way of testing even the smallest victories. Becky, desperate, tried to manipulate, to sow seeds of doubt, to paint me as a villain. She called, her voice honeyed but sharp. "Money's tight. I just can't spare anything." I didn't argue. I didn't need to. The evidence was everywhere. The empty house, the eviction notices, the reality of their choices catching up. She had spent years invested in appearances, and now she was bankrupt of both money and influence. The irony wasn't lost on me. The family that tried to erase me and my daughter, they were being erased instead. Julia noticed changes in the neighborhood too. Friends whispered about Becky and my parents' sudden decline. Rumors of moving into a cramped rental. No help, no handouts, just survival. It was poetic justice in motion. Though I couldn't let her revel in it, she was too young to enjoy other people's downfall. What mattered was that she finally had a home, a sense of belonging, and the knowledge that she could be seen, loved, and protected. The real magic came in small, quiet moments. I remember one morning, Julia rushed to show me a drawing she had made. A family, all holding hands. "That's us now," she said, eyes shining. Her smile was pure and untarnished by the past. I kissed her forehead, feeling the weight of years lift off my shoulders. Grandma, from her chair, watched us. Her approval was subtle but firm. She'd orchestrated justice without shouting, without drama, just decisively, with the quiet power of a matriarch who had seen generations of favoritism and cruelty. She said to me once, "You'll do well. Your daughter will grow up knowing she's seen, known, and loved. That's everything." Weeks turned into months. My parents tried small manipulations, whispers, threats. Nothing worked. Police no-contact orders, legal documentation, and Grandma's unwavering stance kept them at bay. Every attempt at control only reminded them of what they had lost. Julia thrived. Her laughter echoed through the house. She had her own space, not hidden in attics or borrowed bedrooms. For the first time, she was part of a family that celebrated her, not erased her. And I was finally free from years of silent labor, from constant reminders that my life had been a series of handed-down opportunities meant for someone else. The chains of favoritism had been broken, and though scars remained, freedom felt sweeter than I could have imagined. Then came the unexpected lesson about the power of standing up, even when invisible for so long. One afternoon, Julia asked, quietly, as she often did, "Mom, why did they try to erase me?" I paused. How do you explain years of manipulation and favoritism to a 6-year-old? But honesty was necessary. I said, "Some people want things to look perfect, even if it means hurting others. But we don't live like that. We love each other. We exist, and we fight when we have to." Her little hand squeezed mine. "I like our family," she whispered, "even if it's not perfect." I smiled through tears. Perfect, I realized, was never the goal. Seen, safe, and loved, that was everything. As time went on, life settled into a rhythm that, while far from luxurious, was full of authenticity. Julia had her own room, her own space, and the freedom to just be. We spent mornings reading together, afternoons drawing, evenings cooking with Grandma, whose sharp wit and quiet authority continued to be our shield. And the house? Ours. Every corner a reminder that erasure no longer had power. Eventually, word spread wider. Other relatives, friends, even neighbors learned the tale of the Christmas cards, the eviction, and the reversal of fortune. Becky and my parents, they faded from prominence. Their attempts to manipulate, erase, and control left them exposed. The investments, the favoritism, the polished surfaces, it was gone, leaving only reality. We didn't gloat. We didn't need to. The quiet satisfaction of living freely, being seen, and protecting Julia was victory enough. And yet the lessons remained. I taught Julia about boundaries, about standing up for herself, and the value of integrity and honesty. I told her, people will try to erase you, but you are real. You exist, and no one can take that away from you. Her response was a wide smile, eyes bright. "Then I'll just keep existing." It was the purest lesson I could have hoped to pass on. After years of being invisible, after watching my parents manipulate and erase, Julia would grow up knowing the power of presence. Months passed. The house was warm, filled with laughter. Julia decorated her room with more drawings, Grandma smiled over breakfast every morning, and I finally slept without dread gnawing at the edges of my mind. And sometimes, when the world felt too heavy, I looked at the stack of glossy Christmas cards that had tried to erase Julia. I kept them tucked away, a reminder of what we had overcome and the stakes we had faced. They had tried to erase us, but they failed. They had tried to steal hope, love, and belonging, and we kept it all. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition, justice, and the quiet, unyielding power of family that truly sees each other. Julia curled up in her bed one night, clutching her bunny. I kissed her forehead. "Sleep well, kiddo. You belong here. You always have." She smiled in her sleep. Finally, she was safe. And for the first time, I could believe that we were really going to be okay. The storm had passed, leaving behind something stronger than gold, stronger than perfect furniture or polished cards. It left us, seen, loved, together.